Now she says. Now she tells us.
I know they were. Ronnie, I was insensitive. Yep.
Yeah, she did. Margaret had it coming from behind her, from the side.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Today's speaker is somebody that I am so blessed to have known. And I mean, still know. I'm not getting rid of you. I still know you. Because when I met her, I was so impressed by this woman.
Yeah.
She was reading some of her poetry, and that has been 40 years ago. Wow. Yeah.
Hey, wait a minute, I was there.
And you both
40
were
years
five
ago?
then.
Not even a size 5. I'm sorry. And at the Nelson Loudon Hall, is that what it's called in
Loudon
Santa?
Nelson, the other way around.
What's it called? Loudon
Nelson.
Nelson in
Yes.
Santa Cruz. Yeah,
Yes.
long time ago.
That was many days.
Many days ago. And I was so impressed by the way she spoke and what she had to say. And I still am to this day.
Yeah.
Every time I know that Reverend Joyce Brown is going to be speaking, I go, yay, Joyce is in the house, you know? And then Joyce C.
Oh, yeah.
That's who she is. Joyce C. has lived an incredible life. She's done many things. She's come from Mississippi, which I think I hear more about Mississippi than I've ever known from her. And I'm so delighted to hear about it. For me, it's another country. Things are different in Mississippi than they are, and I was born and raised in California. But Joyce has a faith and a look at the world that's different than a lot of you here. And that's why I'm always so excited to have her come speak. And I looked, and you spoke last year about MLK.
Yeah, the fire that water can't
put out. Yeah. And we are so lucky to have you here again. And I got this. I went online and I found because our other poster got crumpled. So we wanted to have So are you ready to come speak, Joyce?
Maybe.
Okay, are you ready? Let's ask her. Come on, Joyce.
Joyce.
Yay! I know, you never know.
Maybe get up.
Yeah, I like your shirt.
I thought wear something flash with everything, but I didn't.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm standing on my stool.
Sure.
Okay. Hi there.
Hey.
Good to see you.
Always.
After all these years, you never look a day older.
Well, 2 days.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I will always accept 2 days older. That means I still have, 5 days left to do something? You know, Dottie and I have known each other longer than we both admit. So that's because we don't know how long it is, actually. No, it really started, I think I was in late 20s, early 30s or something. And I had not been...
Working for the university.
Yes, you see. And we'd go and have the most fun times because you never knew what was going to happen or what people were going to be dressed like. I mean, it was an amazing experience. And I'm not someone who likes to do costumes. I figure Joyce C is pretty good, but to have to figure out what I wanted to dress like and what I wanted to go and do, I always found that I could not find anything suitable for my personality or how I saw myself. And so I don't tend to do it. And I'm very comfortable with that. And that's another way of being free. You know I was going to work it in. But it is another way of being free. In the face of whatever else that is happening around you, to be able to say no. Not because you're being obstinate or something like that. It's just simply saying, no, it's not for me. It's like, I feel the same way about cooked oatmeal.
Wait, I got a picture of you as a mean-looking gangster.
You got it?
Yeah.
No oatmeal. No.
20s party. Yeah.
Yes, I had on the hat, shoes, 2-piece. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. That was a part of my personality.
Oh, gangster.
Yes, right. And wearing the hat, the jacket, the tuxedo pants and all that stuff. That was a part of my personality. But dressing up like characters and things doesn't seem to work for me like it does for other people. So I say no to certain things, and I'm good with that. So when you can say no, I know when a no is no because it has meaning, it's different than when you're just saying it to be difficult. And I've discovered the difference. And when you say yes, let yes be what is truly what yes is, not because you must conform. So when you're moving towards becoming peaceful, or finding your peace, or finding your freedom, it is not about conforming. It is about knowing when to move, when to take an action, and when to be silent and when to be quiet. One of the things that was very interesting about the 60s, is when I think about it, because in 1962, Christmas Eve, the rest of my family, the Browns, arrived in Santa Barbara, California from outside of a place called Clarksdale, Mississippi. And Clarksdale has its issues then and now, and name me a place that doesn't. But that was some serious issues there. But I want to tell you a little bit of how we left, because it's really important about what freedom is. My mother came to Santa Barbara, California in 1962 and stayed for the month of August. She came back. Well, I had 2 sisters and 2 brothers already in Santa Barbara, so she had a place to stay and all of that. And it's summertime, so she didn't have to go work. My mother cooked for the school district. Okay? So when she came home, she said, "We're leaving." Just like that. I was happy because I had been having this vision of not living in Mississippi anymore. And I was 12 years old, but I never told anyone because I was forever seeing things and thinking things that would not have went over too well, even though I lived in a time where visions and things was not uncommon. So the family knew we weren't to tell anyone. The reason why you don't tell anyone in 1962 that you are leaving, a big farm family that has been leaving by pieces, is that the police will come out and arrest your father and or kill him and put him in jail. So you don't tell anybody. We were a big family making a lot of money for the guy who owned the plantation. I grew up living on plantations. See, people don't get it. Plantations still exist. They just call them something else now. Farmland, subdivisions. But they're still plantations. So I lived on a plantation. Now, there was some freedoms there. I didn't know too much about a lot of things, but I knew enough from what my father said and from what I saw as a child. So, little by little, we got rid of everything that we owned. The animals, the cow, her name was Lily. I'll never forget that cow. I love that cow. She could be mean, but I like that cow. And the hogs, the chickens, the ducks, everything had to go. You left all of your furnishings in the house. You sold off everything. We took a car into Clarksdale. A neighbor took us all in with what we could carry. We get to the bus station, and my mother is wearing a dress over her jeans, over her pants, because inside those pants pockets, she's got all this money we made. We made a lot of money to leave there very quickly, because you weren't spending it on anything. You were just making the money, okay, selling things, working the fields, doing everything you had to do to go. We're standing there in the bus station, and my mother walks up to the window. There's a guy in there, this white guy in there, and she buys the first set of tickets. And he tells her she needs another, something like $300. And she didn't have it in her hand, and he started laughing. And then my father, Joseph, he started towards this guy in the window. And I'm thinking, this is not good. And my father, about 6'4", 240, farm guy. All right. My mother turns to him and simply says 2 words. She says, "Now, Brown." That's what she called him, Brown. She called, and he called her Lugal. You know how y'all with names, come on. Y'all not talking here.
Yep.
The man was afraid. She stops my father from tearing that booth up to get at that guy. She gives the man the money, and he's scared, and we get on the bus. And we ride, and we ride, and we ride. Sitting in the back of the bus until we hit LA.
Wow.
In LA, we rode in the middle of the bus. We're in LA. What can I tell you? We hit Santa Barbara, California, late afternoon. We had come a long journey to a new place of freedom. It was a different kind of freedom. It still had its oppressions. My mother couldn't get a job as a cook because she was qualified. My mother was an excellent cook. Today they're called chefs. I don't say this lightly. The woman knew what she was doing. She got a different job working at a cerebral palsy center. My father couldn't get any money because they said he was too old. All my brothers got jobs. I'm in school with all the younger ones. But we still have a different kind of freedom. While I am in school, I encountered some very interesting racism. Not only from the students, mostly black, which was interesting, but from the teachers, which were all white, which I thought was kind of fascinating, because I had come from an all-black school with black teachers. So here I am dealing with black girls mostly, wanting to take me on for some reason. Now you have to understand, I'm 12 years old, I've come from Mississippi, I have 6 brothers who've trained me how to throw a right. You had to learn. We didn't fight like girls, clawing and scratching. You scratch a black girl, she tried to hurt you seriously. Where I grew up. So here I am in Santa Barbara dealing with all this stuff coming at me. So I would politely say, "Fine, I'll meet y'all in the park after school." Nobody ever showed up. I didn't mess around about it. I wasn't standing there going, no, I didn't have no time for that. I grew up in a system where when a girl challenged you, you stood your ground or you shut up, period. I still had that going on, right? I didn't have any what's that word?
Communication.
Misconception.
Thank you very much. I had no...
misdemeanors.
I didn't have none of them either. I didn't have none of them. But I still had this freedom that I didn't have in Mississippi. I had incredible school books that actually were up to date and modern. I didn't have to worry about a teacher coming through with a strap and hitting me because I thought I was somebody and thought I was smart. And I was too dark for that teacher to be smart. So she would hit me. So I come to California and I have a different kind of freedom. Nobody is hitting me. But they are using words to hit me. So I'm denied being able to go into the more accelerated classes because you're a Negro. I said, So I found a way around that being created. So I started talking to the teachers who were desperately trying to make things right. It's amazing what you learn as a child. So I would go to those teachers and say things like, I would like to read something different. May I go to the library? It was interesting because I was polite. I found that California children were not polite. They called them names, they cursed. Because I was polite, which I was raised to be, to teachers and adults, the teachers loved it. And they said, well, of course you may. So I got to leave the classroom and go to the library, which is where I wanted to be. Where I came from, I had no library. You see, so I come to California and there's a certain kind of freedom. Freedom is what you make of it. You see, you can hold grudges, you can be upset and angry all you want, but you're not free. You're still carrying around something that it would suit you better to not to carry. But I have seen a lot that I understood what was happening, but I was not to talk about it. Because there was always someone willing to go and say what you had said to the man who owned the land you lived on, so they could send the police out and to mess with your father, to mess with your brothers. And somebody could die that day. Not necessarily my father or my brothers. There's a lot to be said about what freedom is. I have the utmost and the greatest respect for those who have come before all of us who move towards this thing called freedom. Mr. King, like a lot of good ministers, knew how to bring it to you, knew how to help you to get out of yourself and begin to see more about what's around you, that you are not alone. But it is hard to be free when you live in a place like Jackson, Clarksdale, Memphis, and other places. When someone can come along and take your life, it is really hard to say, I am free. It is really hard to be free when the person who hires you can take everything from you and reduce you down to boy and gal. It's hard to be free. It is so hard to be free when you're watching everyone marching for your freedom, but you cannot march because you live there. It's so hard to be free. So I grew up with a lot of stuff. That's the nicest word I have for that. But I did. I saw it from an early age on, and I wondered what was going on. And then I began to understand from the stories my father told about seeing men hanging from train trestles, things like that. And he would tell me these stories, and I would say, sure enough, Daddy. And he said, yeah, sure enough. And he was always sad. You see, you have to take a look at what you have and what you want it to become. You have to figure out how to get there, depending on where you live and who you are still in this country. So this great man who was murdered, people always want to find nice names for it. He was murdered. He wasn't assassinated. You know, that makes it sound like you just swatted a bug, doesn't it?
Yep.
Assassinated. No, he was murdered. Not because why? You have to ask yourself, why was he assassinated? Because he would not stop, that's why. Because he was motivating people to have a sense of freedom within them. The first place that freedom begins is when you believe you are. And then you begin to take actions towards bringing that into reality. You begin to take some steps. They may be tentative, they may be small, you may hesitate, but you know you can do something. Many a black person left the southern states for the big cities to be free, to find they were not. They went from one kind of oppression to another, from one kind of slavery to another. Just looked different. That's all. It had that sense of, well then, it looked a little different. But it was the same thing. In order to be free, you first must feel it inside of you. If you're going to look outside yourself for your freedom, you will not find it there. You will find what someone is telling you to be free. How can somebody tell me what it is for me to be free living in this country? You cannot. I cannot tell you what it's like to be free living in this country. There is an oppression for just about anything and everything. Once you turn 57, you suddenly become not free. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but I have to go with that though. It came out of my face, I'm gonna stay with it. When you start aging, you start losing your freedom. People start calling your names. They start looking at you like you ain't moving fast enough. You're not thinking fast enough. You're not getting your money out of your bag fast enough. You don't cross the street fast enough. You're not free. People pull up on you and look at you like, get out of my way. You're not free. Now, if you cannot be free to age gracefully, add in some other things. Just add in whatever you're working with that you know you cannot always display everything you want to the way you think you can. But freedom can be inside you, and you got to choose when you're going to do things. You have to choose carefully. Because sometimes, in order to move towards freedom, you must make the decision, how free do I want to be? I grew up with that. When people were marching in the 60s, I'm living in Santa Barbara, California, and I'm watching everyone I knew ignore it. No one talked about what the Reverend was doing, or any of the other men and women from around the world, what they were doing. No one talked about it. I was totally surprised. It never came up in school. It never came up in church. It never came up in a conversation. I was totally surprised. It was as if there was this a blind was placed over it. It wasn't happening. That was those black folks. We living in Santa Barbara, we don't have that. Well, they were wrong. We moved in a segregated area in Santa Barbara. There were no black people up there. It was interesting. Somebody forgot to tell my mother that we couldn't do that. So we move up on a place called La Mesa. The people on the street, most of them left.
Wow.
Then more people moved in because they didn't care. The people who stayed, they welcomed us. The children played with my nieces and nephews, and they came by. The people talked to my father. They got to know him, got to know us. But still, these things were not being talked about in the church. There was no education to support anything. We were not like those individuals. Well, I sure in the heck was. I did heck.
We're proud of you.
With your bad self.
I said, no, first, there it is then.
Step on, girl.
You know, to be free is a right given. No one has the right to decide who can be free and who cannot. And if you really want to find out how free you are, It doesn't matter who's in this room. Go to do something that someone had told you can't do. Then you will discover just how free you are. See, one of the things that's a mistake about this whole thing called freedom, there's an assumption that it has to do with race, but it really doesn't. This lack of freedom has to do with oppression. And races around this country are being, and around the world are being oppressed right now. So it's not just brown people being oppressed. All colors and shades, you name it, are being oppressed.
Yep.
And it's an amazing thing because it's accepted as being over there. Well, quite frankly, it's right here. It's right here. And it's been here for a long time because the individuals who were coming to this country brought their beliefs with them and then imposed them on those that they could because they needed to have some power. They needed to imitate those that they had come from who had the power and they didn't have any. So it's called coming the upper classes. We used to call them the colonialists. That was not a nice word, by the way. If you call someone a colonialist, that was not a good word. But it was a way that we could say bad words without saying the other ones. And everybody knew when you said it. You said, they're what? They said, oh, okay then. So I just want to say this. Our most remarkable man gave us an amazing platform to work from. Dignity, respect, honor, and sometimes you have to have courage you didn't know you had. And sometimes you have to find a way to use that courage the best way you can. Whether you write something, sing something, dance something, whether you're speaking, whether you're offering service to help someone in your community, it's all good. I was in China in 2005. We went there and it was 1 degree and overnight it was below almost. I had a Chinese woman come up to me and she told me that they were supporting us. We are supporting the Negroes, she said. This woman was not offending me. She was using the word that she knew that had a meaning because she was still back there. And I was not offended because this amazing woman risked telling me that. Because where we were, there was police all throughout where we were, watching to see who was saying what and who was doing what, and they all understood English perfectly well until you spoke to someone and then they act like they didn't. So for this woman to do that, she ran the risk of being arrested for saying that she supported the Negroes. We support the Negroes. So the we said there was more than her. That was in 2005.
Oh my God. Where was that at?
See what I'm saying to you? The quest for the freedom and to support doesn't stop. And this woman was not free herself. So we have to put it in perspective and realize to be free is to find your way to be yourself in the midst of everything that's going on around you. And when you can do that, then you can share that with someone else that is open to it, but you cannot force it on anyone. And those who are afraid of me, of you, of anyone being free, they are afraid of losing what they think is their freedom. I don't want anybody's freedom, you see. Never did, can't imagine what I'd do with it. I just want my own. I just want to be me in a world that is telling me I cannot be me. That's an amazing thing. And the person who is telling me this, or the group that is telling me this, will tell you they have the right to be them. and do whatever they want to do. I say to them, you go ahead on and do that. But I'm going to be me. And so when you start to take a look at what freedom is, personalize it. Take a look at what it is that you do every day and you don't think about it. Freedom to have hot and cold running water in your house. You don't have to go to a ditch and drink mud and say it's water. Think about it. That you have a choice between non-GMO and organic than eating stuff that kills everything. That you have the choice to go and get medicine, see a doctor, get your back done, what have you. That you have all these choices. Look at these freedoms. Look at these freedoms that we have right here in California. But you can travel by air to countries where they don't know what hot and cold running water is. Have no idea. But yet, they may have some freedoms that we do not have. They know what they're working with. They know who they can trust. They know what to do when they need the support of each other. Sometimes in these big cities that we live in, we don't know how to work together. We don't know how to come together to bring about change. Sometimes bringing about change isn't about always fighting for things. Sometimes it's about making sure somebody has food to eat, a place to sleep. Sometimes it is as simple as that. That's freedom too. Take a look at what you call freedom. Take a look at what freedom means to you, and take a look at what you can do to share your freedom. And you'll make a difference right where you live. That's what it's all about. Mr. King was telling us this, the Reverend. He was telling us. He told us it's going to happen. It wasn't going to happen with him being here. He knew that. Because too many had been taken away before him. He knew that. But he didn't stop. But we can make change happen without it having to be such a violent way. We can do it. It is learning how to work together and get rid of the pretense. Don't pretend that you care when you don't. Don't make some small donation to something and say, I've done my job. Keep your money. Give something because it's coming from your heart. Then you are working towards some freedom. The other way is just, it's not working from freedom. You cannot put a Band-Aid on freedom. You cannot. This is coming from somebody who had to, in 1962, catch a bus in the middle of the night to leave a place called Clarksdale, Mississippi, to come to California to be free. And this interesting thing, I felt free. You understand me? Freedom is what you feel. I still feel free. I dealt with more racism here in California than I did in Mississippi because it was just black folks out there farming. I come to California, the N-word is flying like crazy.
Oh, that's the truth.
And you're going, seriously? Really? What's this about? And then you realize something very important, that truly freedom is how you feel. And it's what you believe. You believe you're free, you're free. If you believe you're not, then you cannot do any of those things to help to uplift you in life. So that's why I'm so thankful to Dr. King. He inspires me to believe in myself. So did Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth. So did Mr. Carver. Madam C.J. Walker, Dr. Drew, Mr. Garvey, on it goes, on it goes, on it goes, on it goes. Then there's John Coltrane, but we won't even get into that. On it goes. Freedom is what I believe. That's what I act on. And that's why I feel free to speak the way I do, to say the things that I feel. I don't say them for any other reason. I just feel good. So let us all be free together, yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yay, thank you.
Come on.